Alright, draft physics video and such. Comments. Mostly, entirely. Yeah, pretty much. Um, Idiots, though, so. But, whatever. Doesn't. That's all there are is idiots. Look, the physicists are, in my opinion, pretty much idiotic by definition of they just make shit up and then run with it for 70 or 80 years, and then nobody even pays any attention to say, where did we get this theory in the first place? Why is this the way why are we contriving everything to fit this stupid model? Where holes are particles. Yep. It really is just so stupid because they have they have these two classes now. They put things in as bosons and fermions. The big things being the fermions, generally speaking. The little things are supposed to be the bosons, but even atoms can be bosons now. And so boson doesn't even mean what it should mean, which is things moving the speed of light, force elements. I mean, it's totally, just horribly not useful even. The new physics is just as bad as the old physics in the sense that it's, where they have way too many ways to measure the same thing, like a calorie and a degree and a this, that, all these different I can't think of the word, not constants, but you know what I mean. Equivalencies, not the right word, no. Whatever it is. Well, anyway, I'll just read this shit. The classic stupid comment is the asshole who makes a comment before he even watches the video. 3 minutes in, just declare yourself an idiot, okay? Because frankly, only an idiot sits there and wastes time arguing stuff without listening to the video. That's just bullshit. And so far, absolute shit, says you. We know light travels at sea on Earth, which moves. So what? The emitter shoots the light in a Planck amount of small time. The photon is emitted, not moving. When a photon is emitted, the thing can't move because to move would take time and distance. And the thing it's shooting is moving faster, or at least as fast as the thing emitting it. So even if you were emitting the photon from an Earth moving the speed of light, the argument could be made that the emitter can only consume one Planck moment of time in the process of emitting, and therefore only move a very short distance in that process. Idiot. From the photon's perspective, you could argue the thing that it left wasn't moving, because it left moving distance at the speed of light. Whether the thing it was emitted by is moving or not, the photon just couldn't care less once it gets going. Unless the emitter is moving the speed of light, then the photon and the emitter are going to be moving together. And that's the idiot thing where you think the photon can go twice the speed of light. That I can go with the speed of light, turn on the headlights, and the headlights go shooting off into the distance. Doesn't happen. The universe isn't big enough for you to be time retarded enough. That is, perceptually retarded, because it won't be anything in the real universe. In the real universe, the light will never, if you're going 1 mile an hour slower than the speed of light, it would take a zillion, trillion years for you to see the light leave at the speed of light. Your time dilation has nothing to do with what happened in reality. Idiot. Alright, anyway. Maybe you don't know, but the Earth is moving. So do what your... this is... Could you write more incomprehensibly? I mean, it's bad enough I'm not read very well, but I mean, this is just written like shit. So do what your placard, daze, and think. What is? I don't even know what that means. FFS. Fuck you. It's a fact because the math proves it. What math proves what? Math doesn't. Math formalizes relationships we recognize. It doesn't tell you how something happens. It just recognizes that something does happen, like a what, and it explains the relationship that might exist between the pre-existing conditions and the what happened. But it doesn't give you the how. Fuck. So there's no math that proves any of this crap. Bent space isn't proven by math. Huygens isn't proven by math. Heisenberg isn't proven by math. You won't learn the math, so you don't get a vote. Well, again, I don't have to learn how to do calculus to know what calculus is and how it basically functions to average something over time. So, yes, I understand that you can't figure out the Earth's orbit, let's say, when it takes it a year to go around the sun. You have to do the calculation accounting for its entire orbit to figure out when it'll arrive at what location. And there's nothing mysterious about that math, asshole. And there's nothing in that math that has a bent space in it. End of story. Well, your story is a silly story, and it's a meaningless story, because you're not making an argument in defense of your God theories, your made-up, fake mechanisms. You're not. You're just saying the fairies did it, and I have fairy math that proves it. Well, that doesn't prove anything. The math can always be contrived as long as you can sit there and make fake waves in the single slit experiment. I mean, if you're allowed to do the Huygens thing first, then you can create fake math that works, because you can create two waves when there's only one. Feynman wouldn't bother talking to you in the first place. Well, regardless of whether Feynman would talk to me or not, the point is his quotes stand, and you can pretend he didn't say it, but he did. And not a lie is a fact, whatever that is. N. What is that? N, not a lie, is a fact. These are sentences. Is a fact. Feynman said it works perfect except it's wrong. Shithead. No, that's not what he said. He said it didn't work. Okay? For other reasons. That's his exact sentence, asshole. It doesn't work for other reasons. That's what he said. So, lie some more. I'm going to delete that comment because that's just a lie. He didn't say it's wrong. Shithead. And his silly analysis, again, more superficial crap like you do. His silly analysis was to consider an ultramundane particle in physics. If I say I'm a physicist and then I say, think about ultramundane particle, should a physicist start talking about raindrops? Are raindrops ultramundane particles? No, not even close. Alright, ton, not ion, you illiterate. Tron, not ion, you illiterate. I don't even know what that means. I don't care. Fuck you, I'm done talking. Good. Go away, because you're just a rag talker and you say shit you can't back up with anything called evidence or facts. You're just a lying, slandering scumbag who can't make a real argument. So again, he accuses me of being intellectually dishonest. Where's the intellectual dishonesty? Quote it, asshole. Too much of a challenge? Yes, of course it's too much of a challenge. Suck ball ass. Yeah, well, whatever. Get what you deserve, liar. Get what you deserve, which means you should be lied about routinely. And, yeah, you deserve worse than that, because you're a scummy piece of troll. But anyway. So the other asshole. The wind by 4 o'clock. Whatever. Alright, I can't believe it. I thought Hegel was exaggerating, but apparently not. So again, just waste of time. You can't make an argument, so you just have to waste time with your shock and amazement at the fact that you can't make an argument. Already at 2:30 you talk about frames, and you actually call them entities. This is the implication of what you're saying, okay? Now I gave material examples. I said if there's two people, and we're enjoying a nice ride on a train, we can throw something back and forth, because that thing acquires the momentum of where we're going, and the momentum back and forth. So it's actually moving in two directions. It's zigzagging its way across the train. Light doesn't do that. It travels one speed. It can't acquire a second momentum, as I've pointed out over and over and over again. So your silly rules break down. You can't have a private frame where you get to say light isn't in the absolute universe anymore. It still has to do exactly what it would do in the absolute universe. So there's no point in having these inertial frames. There's also no point in even having a conversation about velocity frames versus accelerating frames. Because frankly, every frame you're ever in is an accelerating frame. It's accelerating in some gravitational field somewhere. That's what those billions of stars are all doing. You're in those gravitational fields and they're accelerating you. Asshole. So again, you can't have it both ways. You can't say something specially interesting happens where I can go 99% the speed of light, still turn my headlights on, and they'll move at the speed of light away from me. You can't say that really happens, because it doesn't, in your frame. Your frame is a frame of perception. It's a frame of human cognition. And again, once again, the whole point is that your clock is broken. Your consumption of time is broken. Time dilation does not mean you get to live for a zillion years. It means you absorb reality so fucking slowly that 100 years, let's say, of experience takes a zillion years to happen. Dumbass. The frame means nothing. It shouldn't even be acknowledged as a meaningful thing. The rules of physics are the same every fucking where. Your silly frames don't mean anything. They're irrelevant. There's no changing of the physics because you put a frame around yourself, asshole. And that was the implications of drawing your stupid frames. It was a completely unnecessary waste of physics time to sit there with this silly nonsense that because you can throw a baseball back and forth on a train and it seems like we can't tell who's moving, you know, whether the world out there is moving or we're moving or who's moving, that somehow we can call these frames. No. It's all happening in the real universe, and you can't escape the velocities that you acquire. They will exist. The baseball has the velocities. If I throw it, it has a velocity. If the train's moving, it has a velocity. If the Earth's moving, it has that velocity. All the velocities add up. They're all real. They don't all only count in some kind of idiotic frame. They're all absolutely real events. Stupid shit. Anyway. And you have no proof of anything otherwise. No evidence of otherwise. That's why this whole thing was so stupid. Why would you speculate based on throwing baseballs in a train and start speculating about what something moving the speed of light is doing? Why would you be that stupid? In the first place, the stuff moving the speed of light doesn't slow down or speed up. So it's dumb for that reason alone, because baseballs can. Anyway. Alright, you talk about frames and you actually call them entities. No, you call it something. You call a frame, you say the rules of physics still apply in some sense, that light goes the speed of light in my frame, away from me, even if I'm moving the speed of light, which is retarded. The baseball's going 70 miles an hour. I go 70 miles an hour. somehow the baseball's still going 70 miles an hour away from me. No, it's not. Shit for brain. Alright. Call them bubbles and say everything is boxed inside of them. No, that's your argument. I didn't invent this idea of these silly frames. You did. You're the one clinging to this framey shit. You're the one defending this word, frame. Fuck. Why do you think they use the word frame, shithead? They put a fence and then pretended the fence doesn't mean anything? No, we don't mean to be fencing it in. We called it a fence because, well, it's a fence. It's a separate area. It's distinctive from. It's this frame, not the absolute frame somehow. Somehow we had to distinguish the two things. So we put a border around it because they're somehow different. That somehow the absolute universe has to be framed off. We have to frame it away from itself. Because nothing can have a relativistic playground and be in the real world too at the same time. Anyway, this is enough to conclude that you don't even understand classical mechanics. Well, this is enough for me to conclude that yes, you're a God theorist, you believe in free will, you're a complete sap and an idiot, and you'll buy anything. You're really dumb. Because that's the concept from classical mechanics. What's the concept? There is no waste of time framing the universe in classical mechanics. There's absolutely no need for anybody to, when they got a lever and they say, I'm not in the real universe when I'm using my lever. No, they're in the real universe. One set of rules, universal rules. So you can't even get that right. There's nothing in classical mechanics that talks about separate universes or multi-dimensional bullshit, asshole. So you don't even get that right. The first law requires an inertial frame, for God's sake. The first law of what? The first law of what? For God's sake, yes, of your God theory. You have to create some sort of inertial frame, which means I'm going to pretend that everything behaves as if we're on a train tossing muffins back and forth, where the muffins actually have more velocity than it appears to us. I'm sitting here in my seat and I throw it to you over in your seat, and the only velocity I see is the velocity of the muffin going to you, because I can't see its universal velocity also going with the train. But it's there. The muffin has it. It's a real thing. If I blow the fucking train, if I throw the muffin and then I make the train disappear, what speed do you think the muffin's traveling, jackass? The 30 miles an hour I threw it at you? Or the 70 miles an hour the train was moving? Shit for brain. Stupid fuck. This comes from Newton's laws, God's sake. No, there's no Newton's laws of separate universes. There's no Newton's laws of, England is different than France. No, there's no such thing as any of that crap. It's all one physics and it happens in one fucking universe. This is why you're getting such colorfully strong responses. No, I'm getting colorfully strong responses from dimwits who are just religious fanatics who really haven't thought about it or looked into any of this shit, and they just buy what the Pope says. Oh, I love the Pope. I love his, I want to rub his little bald head. It's because you're making shit arguments with no fucking, repercussions. And the shit arguments are being responded to with what? An explanation of the actual fact? No. An explanation of an experiment that proves the fact? No. And if they do point to an experiment, it's one I've already debunked, which makes it even more fun. Ones you don't think about, ones you haven't analyzed, you just don't care. And I point out the huge flaws in the interpretations of the two-slit experiment. I've pointed out how now with Michelson Morley, I've pointed out a huge, whatever you want to call it, irregularity, a defect that nobody's responded to it. The fact that the beam splitter doesn't create two equal beams. One of them will spread more because it's spread early. The other one's is spread as the last lens it goes through. So one's got a tiny divergence, one's got a big giant divergence. So what's your response to that? You're just going to keep saying it as if it means something when I've pointed out it has a flaw? Where's your counter-argument to my argument regarding polarization and the fact that polarization doesn't create 50-50 results? Alright, anyway. You're just an asshole. It is absolutely clear, too, pretty much just, hey, whoever, and no one else, really, that there's a communication gap so wide that it's irreconcilable. Dumb fuck. You know, the communication is you have no courtesies. You're an impolite slob. And you don't even have the courtesy to sit there and say, okay, I'm going to inquire of this person, or I'm going to challenge this person. And instead you just insult. Alright, so you're just petty weasels. You can't sit there and form a counter-argument. And you're weak-ass. Trolls. You can't even make an icon for your YouTube channel. That's how little respect you have for your own commentary. Is that you won't even make an icon for it. Because you know you're a troll. Hey there. Your comment was not showing up, so I assume you deleted it. Well, you can assume whatever the fuck you want, asshole. But in any case, I just wanted to say that your sense that it's better not to get involved in any of this is completely right. Please trust it. Cowards. You can't make an argument. You can't defend the lies being told about the two-slit experiment. You can't defend the fact that dark matter is just a god of the gaps invention. And the fact is that bent space was no better. It was a bad guess at an answer. It was lazy. Incredibly lazy. It explains not one iota of a how. And all of this field theory shit is exactly the same thing. We'll just blame it on the electro field and the magno field. And then we'll have an electron field and an anti-electron field and a nuon field and a puon and a zuon field. It's all just cop-out. It's not physics. So, fuck you. Sincerely. Alright, so Macule CS says, Mayule CS, wherever that is. Frame of reference, not frame like an entity. Good God. Yeah, we've already been over this. So, again, it's like every word in the vocabulary you assholes want to break. So, you know, the word particle doesn't mean anything, because now they're calling holes particles. The word anti doesn't mean anything, because obviously a hole is not an anti. It's not the opposite of. Now the word frame. Frame doesn't mean something. It doesn't mean like this is a separate territory or this is a separate thing. That it's somehow different than the unframed space. Of course it is. And it is by Einstein's definition. Because he says the speed of light doesn't pay attention to the existing circumstance. That it'll go twice the speed of light if you need it to, in a sense. Because he's going to say the clock isn't broken, somehow the space is broken. You're actually telling correct time. Space just breaks so much that it takes 1 trillion years of your slow perception, for something to happen. And yes, the rest of space went zooming by. Because in your special frame of bent space, okay, you did something different. And that's not what happened. Idiot. Asshole. Alright, so Wind again. The guy who wasn't going to comment anymore. Maybe if you weren't such a dim-witted little asswipe, you'd have a chance to getting what's the deal with light having to move more distance. There's no deal. The fact is that light moving distance is the most solid, and it's the constant that is the universe. The whole universe is based on the fact that it takes force time to go from one place to another. And there's no evidence that that's broken anywhere. That's as solid gets. And it's the foundation for the function of the entire universe, is the speed of light and its connection to distance. Maybe you'd have a fucking chance knowing where those forces are. I don't even know what that means. Clearly, you're the one who doesn't understand. You don't think forces exist. You think fields are making it happen. Bent space fields, electrofields, magnofields. Idiot. You're the one who can't find the forces. Shithead. They need the help of the field to get somewhere. Shithead. I really hate multiple commenters, multiple comments by the same asshole. So I will be doing some deleting of that crap. What the hell is all this shit? 3 days ago? Long. I didn't read some, so they've been doing still some more talking on an old comment. Anyway. Alright. Sorry, it's hot in here. I'm wearing a shirt just for you. You fixed gravity by removing the kinetic heat problem, then reintroduced it with your idiotic vibrating molecules idea to get time dilation back. I didn't have to make molecules vibrate. That was already a given from the very beginning, that the field energy will never be perfectly even all the time. It'll always be a little bit uneven. Like any probabilistic, highly dense medium will always produce a little more this way any 1 second, and then it'll be a little more this way the next second, blah blah blah. So that's just a lie that I invented wobbling molecules. I mean, it's a foundation. Everybody agrees that they all wobble, idiot. The point is I talked about electrons, not molecules. Electrons don't fly straight. And I explained why they don't fly straight. Is because when they do the perpendicular thing, the perpendicular reflection, it changes two vectors in 2 dimensions. It changes their balance in this dimension, and it changes their balance in this dimension. So unlike the standard reflection, where only one thing changes, the balance in the direction opposite the reflection, when it does the perpendicular thing, it changes the balance in 2 dimensions. And there's no choice. That balance gets changed. So that's going to cause less than perfectly straight travel, idiot. It's a perfectly rational explanation, and it's perfectly consistent with what is observed, asswipe. So fuck you. Idea to get time dilation back. Bravo, idiot, dumb fuck. Yeah, well again, none of that happened, so fuck you. It's a mischaracterization of the truth. Alright, let's see, the scaling, no, okay. Here, so this is isomorphic, this whatever, blah blah blah, okay. Here is a real world example you can grasp today. I'm sure that's not what it'll be. In the greater Massachusetts area, sun expelled massive amount of what it does expel. Check the flag, they don't move. No flow. The car create flow. Big rig, etc. Hot up, cold down, no flow. Oh, he's retarded. I think we'll just block this guy because this is a retarded comment. So we're done with him. Oh, he had another one. Let's see. Mathematic can no be used as main proof. Anything virtual cannot be used as main proof. A proof is based on a lot of things, but one of the things it's based on is there any other viable explanation? So any argument that creates a vacuum of better explanation is getting close to being a proof. That is why psychic and theoretical physics have it wrong. Well, again, theoretical physics doesn't, not all of it has to be connected to anything mathematical whatsoever. So you can talk about things like dark matter. You don't have to have dark matter math. They just have to have a theory that matter can exist in a form that is transparent, except to gravity. I mean, it doesn't reflect energy, so therefore you can't see it. Now, what does that have to do with math? It doesn't have anything to do with math. Huygens, in a sense, although you can use it mathematically, isn't a mathematical concept. The concept is that there's an infinite number of little waves produced by every wave in the universe. Yeah, it's a silly idea, but I'm just saying, so, you know, math is not science or physics. I mean, physics isn't math, just as evolution isn't math. There can be math. You can do statistical analysis to figure out what the likelihood of a certain gene being recessive or dominant. There's math you can apply to the theory of evolution, but the theory of evolution doesn't need math to be demonstrated to be consistent with what we observe to be the outcome. Alright, so he says, mathematic and noble. Okay, so when Mindless responded to that gibberish, I consider mathematics to be just a really, really detailed description. That's pretty much it. A description of what? Again, it's not a description. It's a description of relationships that can exist between variable circumstances. So there can be a relationship between the radius of a circle and the circumference of the circle. How is the math a detailed description of circles and how they function? It isn't. Anyway, pretty much any statement that is rigorous and abstract is bound to become a mathematical statement. Again, I don't think that has anything to do with anything that's reasonable, in the sense that that would require you to be able to quantize every concept into some sort of integer. That ain't going to happen. People are trying to find descriptions that describe the outer world, and inevitably that would require the statement to be generalized and rigorous. Generalized into what? Into concepts, and some of those concepts are going to end up being geometric. And yes, geometry has math in it, but there's just no obligation. Again, where the theory that there could be even black holes, you don't need to do one bit of math to understand conceptually what a black hole would be. Fuck. Stupid comment. So, yeah, we'll dispense with it. Alright, let's see. Howdy, thanks for doing these videos. I appreciate trying to understand your theory because it gives me something to compare to other ones, such as mainstream commercial fear of losing grants, etc., and electric universe theory, which again is just crap. So this whole fascination with Tesla visions of reality is just that's a black hole of doom. Tesla did not understand. Look, Tesla was incredibly unsuccessful at realizing his dreams. So just recognize that how Tesla thought the universe worked wasn't anything close to how the universe worked. If he was alive today, he'd still be thinking he could shoot energy through the atmosphere, that somehow he'd have a way to get it to go around all the molecules and the atoms, because they don't really exist. They're just perturbations. Anyway, which has a lot of hotkey proponents like Ken and Lee. I don't know who Lee is, but he's an idiot too, no doubt. Personally, I appreciate the Thunderbolts project. And I don't know, again, why? How does it explain attraction, repulsion? How does it explain anything? How does this vague little, everything's electrical. How does that explain anything? I'm sorry. I can't see it. I can't see the fascination with these non-explanations, which is EU theory, but is a group of scientists from diverse fields. Well, I don't know how many of them are actually scientists. Yeah, who attempt to use evidence in their videos. Well, I've seen some of their videos, and their evidence is just sometimes really just snarky troll comments. They're trolling Einstein. I mean, to make complaints like, the fact that Einstein, you had to put two bodies in the math to do the math. It had to be a two-body equation. You couldn't do a gravity equation with no other body in the equation. And to say that somehow proves the equation is bogus or something was just idiotic. Even if you disagree, I hope you notice that about them. Now, what I notice about them is they just seem to be desperate haters. and again, for what cause is because they believe in some dullard thing or some Tesla thing or some other, they're religious fanatics. By the way, I watched some of Lee's stuff previously and even chatted with him a little bit. A little. I don't know who Lee is. He's got some mental health issues. Brian's there. Bet he's a really kind person who is trying to express himself after experiencing some shocking thoughts during what most call an episode. So is Lee the religious kook? But he's choosing to keep the religion. Okay. But he's choosing to keep the religion. Well, I'm just saying the fact, I can't take him very seriously as a scientist. When you start drawing magnetism as a heart shape and create little swirly lines that have, there's no factual evidence anywhere that a magnet ever produced a butterfly antenna. I mean, it never produces swirly whatever those are. Where the fuck did that come from, that nonsense? I mean, I can't. It's hard to take that seriously as some kind of science when he's using presumptive flows that I can't even recognize as being connected to anything I ever saw in my entire life. My own brother has a similar problem, but much, much worse. So I'm sorry. He lives in a hospital. Well, and has been electroshocked more than 300 times. Yes, well, that's probably what they would have done to me. It's very sad, but I was lucky. Get out in the woods so they couldn't get to me. Anyway, please try to be helpful if you discuss science with Lee, because he's not mean. Well, like I said, I'm not going to bother discussing it because there's no premise to work from. Clearly, he's not going to pay any attention to Maxwell's equations or anything real. I mean, he just wants to draw heart-shaped stuff. That's not physics. Animal crackers is not physics. Alright, more from this wind asshole. How about you actually do the math with your stupid gravity theory? So again, as if it hasn't already been done. Let's understand, there's absolutely nothing wrong with Newton's math. Rock solid. It just lacks some detail. Okay, in the sense of, minor irregularities that happen in the communication of the force. Newton didn't know how fast force travels. He didn't know at what speed gravity travels. So obviously you can understand that there's these little subtleties would matter about what the speed of the influence, how long it takes the influence of one planet to reach another planet, and then how long it takes the gravity to actually move through the mass. So you can understand that yes, the precession of Mercury was a little bit off, based on the fact that Newton didn't know the speed of gravity, and he really didn't have the capacity to do that kind of detailed analysis in the sense of anticipated, let's say, because that would require him understanding electrons, understanding that gravity is a nuclear force even, and that the force has to affect all the little bits inside of the mechanism, and that's why the center of the sun's gravity can actually be moving inside the sun. The mass of the sun, like Newton wouldn't have probably fully been able to appreciate that the mass of the sun, its density, could be variable. Prove that it works out rather than just declaring it. Well, again, the fact is that gravity is basically the mechanism is as simple as a light bulb in reverse. The fundamental mechanism, 99% of the function of gravity, is just thinking about a light bulb in reverse. Now, what math do you need besides the inverse square law? And again, how are the observed variables? That is, we know that it's mass is what's getting moved by gravity, but mass doesn't make you move faster. So the heavier you are, it doesn't mean you move faster. It just means that you move based on having a constituent of mass. So it's clearly a nuclear, quote-unquote, force. And they don't even do that. They don't even tell that truth. Idiot. So anyway. But what math do you want me to reduplicate? It's a simple convergence, fundamentally. What math needs to be redone? The proving the orbits and all the nuances of 9 planets circling the sun and saying, okay, I'm going to predict exactly where Pluto will be for 10 years from now. Yeah, that's going to be complicated math, but we all know that the basic force isn't complicated. And again, how does that explain what's causing it? If I say the light bulb is being caused because little pieces of stuff are flying off the light bulb in straight line vectors. Now you could have a theory that they're little fairies and they're moving the speed of light. The math isn't going to be able to distinguish between those two theories, asshole. The math isn't going to tell you which one's right, jackass. Alright, just so stupid. Alright, prove. So again, you prove your theory, then I wouldn't have to prove mine, okay? So yeah, if you go ahead and prove yours, then I won't have to bother proving mine. So why don't you get to that? Prove that it works out rather than just declaring it. Well, I don't have to prove it because I already pointed out. I've already said like 7 or 8 times the same thing each time, so I guess you're just compulsive liars. I mean, it's called mock gravity. They actually called the sage gravity, changed its name, said, let's call it mock gravity because it works. It does everything you want a gravity model to do. You just can't take it out into a spaceship and use it. So you can't travel through space with it because of the thermodynamic problem that I fixed, by the way. So now you can. So now it works without the flaws. Jackass. So it already fits gravity, you idiot. That's why they call it mock gravity, because it mocks gravity perfectly. Asshole. Just like Piro has said. What has Piro said? Piro, the guy who presents fake evidence? Oh, okay. Piro, who says parameciums have a brain and feel? Just like Piro has said, we won't see that because you're too fucking stupid. So again, what do you want me to show you? The formulaic relationships. The formulaic definition of the convergence has already been done by Newton and Einstein. There's nothing in Einstein's equations. There's no bent space factor. There's no anything but the same variables Newton was using, except Einstein recognized that with every movement you're moving the center of gravity and of both bodies, and that movement is what you have to account for. Idiot. Alright. Again, it's a tiny amount of failure. I mean, when you think about Newton doing this 300 years ago, and he's off by a few meters over a year, and you bitches think he got it completely wrong. No, that's called getting it almost completely right. Stupid fucks. And Einstein didn't change anything Newton established. The inverse square law is still the inverse square law in Einstein's math, jackass. Shit. Alright, anyway. Let's see. You say that magnetism is filtered gravity. Well, that's technically not what I say, but what I say is that it's filtered for the polarization that exists in the force. The forces come in two polarizations. That's right, two geometries, however you want to describe it. And that they are the same force, and that everything takes place at the subatomic scale. Yes. Everything that happens to tons and electrons and protons. Everything else is a consequence of what they're doing. The atom is a byproduct of what the pieces inside the atom are doing. Okay. I've not seen you once talk about gravity taking place at the subatomic level. Well, that's amazing because I call it a nuclear force, and I do it in more than like at least 7, 8 videos, at least that many. I've called it a nuclear force. That it should have always been called a nuclear force because it only affects the subatomic particles. It doesn't affect atoms even, technically. So I've done that, I've said that, so you're just lying now. Okay. I mean, you can say you've not seen it, but I'm just saying then you should say, I haven't watched your videos. Because all you have are electric forces. So again, there are no electric forces. There's only really magnetic forces. Electric is just a consequence of using magnetic forces to move electrons. Electrons are moved by magnetism. When electrons move, we call it electricity. All that gravity you talk about is supposed to come from those interactions with protons and electrons, but our bodies don't nearly have enough charge to produce even the weakest of gravity. So again, that doesn't... Your body, the stuff's coming from outer space, idiot. There's force hitting you right now from all directions. And a magnet filters that force into, you know, black stuff coming out one end, red stuff coming out the other end. Converts it, let's just say. So anything that comes in red this way comes out black. And anything that comes black in the bottom comes out red the other side. What's so hard to understand? Red comes out red. Black comes out red. And at the top, black comes out black, and red comes out black. What's so hard to understand? Anyway, that makes you dumb as those who say gravity equals magnetism. Well, again, I'm not saying they equal each other. I'm making a clear distinction that gravity isn't polarized. Gravity is mixed. And the consequences of hitting an electron with mixed force is you won't get the same effect as you will if you hit it with polarized force. A magnet is different than a shoelace. They function different. The exact same force is going through them, but one of them converts that force and that makes shit happen. It makes electrons and protons behave differently because there's not a mixture of the force in their field, in the range of in the influence of the magnet. There's a change in the field dynamic. It's dominated by, you know, one color. What's so hard to understand? Same amount of force, it's just filtered. You don't understand the word filtered? How about you do an experiment and actually hold a magnet out while jumping off the tallest building you can find? Ha 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 ha. You haven't thought any of this through. You're the one who hasn't thought anything through. This argument is vacuous. Again, point to my website and the link below. The drawings are there. The explanation of the two polarizations is there. The consequences it creates is there. This is not a debunk of that explanation. Alright. And I don't declare any of this arrogant fuckface explain it. Well, whatever. I have explained it over and over again. So, fuck you, liar. Okay, so now some guy, Gene Raphael. Okay, it is called a frame of reference, not just a frame. Again, what is the difference? So again, the word frame doesn't mean anything. Alright, we're going to change the meaning of frame. Frame doesn't mean different and significant and walled off and no. It just means we're going to say it for no reason. That everything is the same in the frame as it is outside the frame. If everything is the same in the frame as it is outside the frame, why are you putting the frame around it? Oh, that's right. No explanation. I suggest you watch the old black and white movie about frames. No, why don't you try to pretend that you understand that photons are different than baseballs, that photons are different than a little floaty ball on a desk, that photons are different. Photons are traveling the speed of light, a constant. Are any of those things on the little black and white video on the desk, are any of those things required to move at a constant speed? Idiot. Do any of them have constant speed written on them? They always move at a constant speed? No. But you're going to tell me that you know that light works that way. That light behaves like these floaty things on a desk. No, it doesn't, jackass. So I suggest you go stick a bar of soap in your mouth because you're a potty mouth, and that you do what he suggested before. Maybe get one of those little floaty things that floats on desks, and dry ice in them, make them float. Get one of those, hold it out and jump off a building. I suggest you watch the black and white frame to the 60s. I believe it was them. You may be able to grasp the concept. And again, so your concept is that something that we know travels the speed of light, the maximum speed that's known to be able to travel in the universe, a preposterously huge speed, 300 million meters a second. You say you know how that thing is going to behave in one of your little special frames because you did the experiment. No, you didn't do the experiment, jackass. You didn't even come close to doing the experiment. You threw a baseball on a train, jackass. That's what you did. And then you speculated about what light does when you're moving 3/4 the speed of light. And you're saying you're not playing games here with evidence? Why don't you prove what you're saying, shithead? Prove you've seen photons emitted from the headlight of a car moving 3/4 the speed of light. Prove to me that you've seen a car moving 3/4 the speed of light, you turned the headlights on, and you saw that the light traveled the speed of light away. It is a well-made video, only 30 minutes. Well, again, it's more than 30 minutes because it's got lots of parts, shithead, so I guess you don't even understand that. It's a whole series of videos, dork. Don't know what to tell you. Well, I just informed you. Maybe you ought to go look and watch the rest of those videos, and then maybe you'll understand that they're talking about frames of reference for mechanical things, and not one of those mechanical things will ever be a photon, shithead. You obviously lack either the willingness or aptitude to grasp such simple concepts. Apparently you think that if I throw light off a train, it'll do what a baseball does, and it'll go that way. Apparently you think light can have two momentums. Yeah, dumbass. If I drop a ball while a moving train seems to fall in, this is not well written. If I drop a ball while in a moving train, it seems to fall in a straight line. And again, we know that what it seems to be doing isn't accurate, that in real life it's actually moving very fast the direction of the train. If the train's going 70 miles an hour, the ball's actually going 70 miles an hour with the train, plus the maybe 30 miles an hour of your dropping it. It has two vectors of velocity, and the two of those will be the hypotenuse, the square of those two and that will be its actual velocity. Its actual velocity will be greater than either of the other two velocities. That's guaranteed. Now, a photon can't do that, shithead. So a photon isn't going to be seen to go straight down, because it can't do what the fucking ball is doing, jackass. It can't move two directions at the same time, fuckhead. So it won't seem that way. Stupid shit. Let's see. To a stationary observer outside the train, it seems to fall at an angle. No, it doesn't. Anybody outside the train who's rational would understand the train's moving 70 miles an hour. So that's not what it would seem to do at all. Let's see. It is that simple. What gives? So he puts that in capital. It is that simple. So you think photons, again, can have two momentums. You're a fucking idiot. Alright, so he replies to his own shitty comment. Maybe you should take a note of all the thumbs down. Why would I do that when I know malicious trolls create things called sock accounts and rate videos down? Why would I bother paying any attention at all to ratings? And again, why would I do that in a circumstance where I'm basically pointing out that your icons of science lie through their teeth? They obviously don't pay any attention to actual experiments. They can't describe one accurately to save their life. And they obviously haven't thought through any of this shit, because they think pull forces are easier than push forces. Dumbass. The fact that many have resorted to calling you harsh names, I don't care what. The point is, you're not making a counter argument. And when you do make counter arguments, you post to videos that are fraudulent, or you post to a scientific article that's just so ludicrously overstated. We actually saw a photon waving, when everybody knows that can't happen. You'll never actually directly see a photon waving, ever. So, preposterous overstatements. And again, where's your response? Do you think LIGO is legitimate science? So you think Einstein really believed you can convert matter into bent space? Not convert matter into radiation, moving the speed of light, but bent space. You think that's possible, do you? You think Einstein thought that was possible? You lying pieces of scum. Anyway, calling you harsh names, I'll call you harsher ones. Due to frustration brought about by your apparent ignorance. Well, again, you're the obnoxious, arrogant, ignorant fucks who lie about what I've said, who lie about the arguments you've made, which you haven't made any, and so, you know, it's not even apparent ignorance. You're dishonest, grotesquely dishonest. Please don't debate these things in person. You will probably end up getting your ass beat to a bloody pulp. By who? By one of you, weak asses? What exactly did you do? You put in capital letters. It's that damn simple. Photons are the same as baseballs. It's that fucking simple. No, it isn't. Dumbass. So, goodbye. And goodbye. Scum. Alright, mindless douchebag who was supposed to be on some sort of I'm too busy vacation. Let's see. I just wanted to say, you say that we didn't know how moving mirrors work. But exactly what factor would be influenced, especially pertaining to the Michelson-Morley experiment? Well, it's the same argument I made before. If let's say a photon is bouncing off three, like in a rainbow or something, and it's bouncing, reflecting 3 times before it actually does its reflecting thing. How do you know when the mirror's moving what effect that would have on the angle of the light coming out from the mirror? I'm just saying it gets a little complicated. You don't think any of that's worth the trouble? Fine. The new argument is, why don't you point out how beam splitters are not diffraction gradients and that they aren't spreading the light. And I'll show you the laser experiment where you can actually see the two beams when he puts a piece of paper in front of them, and you can actually see how the one beam is twice as round as the other beam. So why don't you explain how that's irrelevant? There is one factor I can think of which was raised by Superior Mind, and this was possibly that moving mirrors would have a delay between when the mirror absorbs the photon and readmits it. Exactly my point. This is an interesting point, but it actually becomes very convoluted when you think about it. Yes, it's difficult, so let's not even mess with that anymore, because the new argument is, what about the diffraction? Okay, so explain the divergence of the beams. The two beams diverge at a different rate. For starters, a mirror moving sideways would have a greater delay than a mirror moving forward or backward. And well, I made this point, and when accelerating at an angle, the photon would hit, especially by my theory, the photons aren't going to hit it exactly at the same spot. They hit it at a different place on the mirror, a different angle, and that angle has a different distance. However, the biggest point that nullified the issue that the experiment has been done with various arm lengths. Again, that doesn't change anything. If some mirror delay were accountable, then this delay should not depend on the arm's length. Well, it would if it's diverging the light. More specifically, the mirror could cover up the Michelson-Morley experiment for one case, but then when you rescale the experiment to the larger or smaller, the mirrors would fail to cover that up. Again, I don't know whether that's relevant. The Kennedy-Thorndike experiment is also pertinent because it uses two arms that are of different lengths, and that would reveal whether or not the mirrors are responsible. Again, it doesn't explain the quality of the light. Again, we're talking about something where the whole point is that you're creating Newton's rings in the two beams of light. So the quality of that pattern is going to be dependent on what it's interfered with before you recombine it. You know, you're not measuring how quickly the light moves. You're assuming, okay, you can tell how quickly the light moves based on the phase difference, because you're detecting the phase difference because you have created Newton's rings. You've created a diffracted light beam. How else to say that? And the whole problem with doing that is also the fact that you change the length of the beam when you create a diffracted beam. The photons on the outside are going to end up having to travel further to be in phase. The straight line middle is a shorter distance than the diffracted beam.